Parshas Ki Sisa. This week's Parsha talks about the tragic events of the Egel HaZahav, of the making of the golden calf. It also talks about the redemptive aspects of the relationship between the children of Israel and the Almighty, in that they are forgiven for their sins through the efforts of Moshe Rabbeinu, and also they receive the second tablets that Moshe fashions himself. Now, after the sin of the golden calf, Hashem says that he is not going directly with the Jews, because if he does, they're stiff-necked people, they're stubborn, they don't change, and they risk destruction. So instead, he sends an angel, a malach, an agent, to lead the way for the children of Israel. But he informs them that the intensity of his divine presence will not go with him. And the Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, were sad. It says, Vayishma ha'ames hadavar hara hazeh. The people heard this terrible thing, this bad thing, Vayisabalu, and they grieved. V'lo shasu ish et yoalav. And no man put his jewelry on. That's a bit of a curious ending to that phrase. And now let's see, this jewelry, whatever it is, shows up again. That was Lamed Gimel Daled. That was 33, verse 4. Now we're talking about Pasuk Hey, verse 5. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe, Emor el Bnei Yisrael, tell the children of Israel, Atem kshei oref. You're stubborn. You're stiff-necked people. Rega echad elebikir b'chol v'chilisicha. One moment in the tradition of Chazal, rega is not a good thing. Rega is a brief moment, but it's a moment of a display of God's anger or retribution. He says, one moment, and I will rise among you and wipe you out. Va'ata, and now a reappearance of this mysterious jewelry. Va'ata horeded yochomi alecha. And now take your jewelry, remove your jewelry from on you. Ve'eda ma eselach. And I will know what to do with you. Curious. What's the deal with the jewelry? And then God will know what to do. And then the next verse. This is Vav. This is verse 6. Vayisnatzlu b'nei Yisrael es ed yom ha'chorev. And the children of Israel were deprived or stripped of their jewelry from Chorev. What's this jewelry? Well, as you might expect, there's considerable discussion about this. We first turn to Rashi. Rashi, quoting the Gemara in Shabbos Taf Peches, says that when the children of Israel said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we'll do it, and then we'll hear it. In other words, we're not going to first vet whether it's something we can live with or not. We're in. We'll do it. And we'll study it. And that was something that was so meritorious that all of Bnei Israel were awarded crowns. Okay, what were these crowns? Could be understood literally. That as a result of this, I mean, we're talking about miraculous times, that they were crowns. One of the older midrashim and modern day commentaries, also like Rav SR Hirsch, say that these crowns are tefillin. The Midrash says that, the Targum Yonason says that it's the Shem Hamaforash was Chakuk, the ineffable name, the name that we don't say, was engraved in this thing, which may be support for this position of crowns. The Mahari Kra says that it's beautiful jewelry. The children of Israel knew that they were going to have a spectacular confrontation or revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the Almighty, and they dressed up. Now, as you might expect, some view these crowns as less of a physical manifestation, more of a spiritual manifestation. Rabbeinu B'chayeh, the Sefarno Rabbeinu B'chayeh, says that there was overwhelming gladness which dissipated when this happened, when Hashem said, I'm not going to be with you with the same level of intimacy and intensity as I was in the past. And the Sefarno similarly says they had reached a certain spiritual level at Mount Sinai, and this was deflating to them. Some even say, in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that this jewelry, this adornment, is talking about weapons. But we have something of an anomaly in that the verses seem to be in reverse order. First, it says in verse 4 in Pasuk Dalet, it says, "V'lo shasu ish elav," they didn't wear their jewelry, and then Hashem says, "Take off your jewelry." Well, if they didn't wear it, how did they have jewelry to take off? And then it says they were stripped of their jewelry from Har Chorev. You would think that at least the first two verses would be reversed, that it's Hashem says, take off your jewelry, and they did, V'lo shasu. They didn't put it on. And there are some commentaries who say exactly that the verses are not written in chronological order, but they're written in kind of a narrative that interweaves events. Barbanel addresses many of these, maybe all of these, in his explanation. And he says that it does not mean Torah, like some. He attributes that verse to the Barbanel. It doesn't mean tefillin. He rules out that some say it means the blood of the covenant. That was still, residue was still on them, and that was considered to be deer-like jewelry. But rather, he says there was all manner of jewelry. And like today, there are certain pieces of jewelry that a person will wear constantly. And then there are other pieces of jewelry that they will wear on to mark special occasions. And what he reads is that first is they heard this and they're not putting on any jewelry. That's it. This is too sad a moment for me to adorn myself. And secondly, Hashem says, okay, even the permanent, relatively, the regular jewelry that you wear all the time, take it off. Take it off. And he addresses the order in which this is described. And he says, first, Pasuk Daled, it says, Lo shasu ish esed yo. The people didn't put on their jewelry. Secondly, whatever jewelry they had, they took off. And then that was it. Now, what does that have to do? We said in the final verse, Hashem says, take off your jewelry, and I will know what to do with you. So the Ibn Ezra says that it actually isn't I will know, but Va'ida is a rare form of the word, but it means I will let you know. Okay, but what about and I will know? Well, that seems to be problematic. And what do you mean? God doesn't know. He needs something else to happen. And I discussed this with my brother-in-law, who's in town, Rav Elio Dordek, who kind of got me thinking along these lines. And it may be viewed as a kind of an out of sync of having jewelry that either was awarded to you as a result of your valor for saying Na'aseh B'nishma, or that you donned to mark this special occasion. But don't come to me after having betrayed me, says Hashem, with outward manifestations, representations, symbols of your devotion to me. That will only make your situation worse. It's like someone who is awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, and he betrays his country in some way, either corruption, graft, or betrayal of espionage, something along those lines. And he comes into court. Don't wear the medal. It's only going to make it worse. Don't try to appear holier than you are, more special than you are, because what you're asking for is a takedown. What you're asking for is a more severe punishment. And what we could understand in response to the question that we asked about, doesn't God know? Yes, he knows. And what he's saying is, look, don't appear before me as though you are righteous. Admit your shortcomings. Confront your own failings, and then we'll deal with it. Until you are able to confront your own shortcomings, you leave no room for repair. Once you confront your shortcomings and you say, you know what? I'm not perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm far from it. I'm removing, as it were, the symbols of piety that are there for display, but aren't reflective of the reality, of the inner reality of one's life. At that point, you can begin to have the assistance of the Almighty, the forgiveness of the Almighty, the support of the Almighty, to get back to your previous level, so long as you attempt to portray an image of being on a level that you're not. It's very difficult to do the work that's necessary to regain that status. But if you get real and you divest yourself of hypocritical manifestations of outward piety while the insides need work, then you can begin the work of repair. And that's what happens in this week's Parsha. Have a good Shabbos.